Blind people of Reddit who have done acid, what did you see? Here's a great quote from this article about a blind 70-year-old former rock musician's experience with acid. I never had any visual images come to me. I can't see or imagine what light or dark might look like, Mr. Blue Pentagon told the researchers. But under the influence of LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, also known as acid, sounds felt unique and listening to music felt like being immersed in a waterfall, he said. The music of Bach's Third Brandenburg Concerto brought on the waterfall effect. I could hear violins playing in my soul and found myself having a 1-hour-long monologue using different tones of voices. LSD gave everything height. The sounds coming from songs I would normally listen to became three-dimensional, deep, and delayed. Having a 1-hour monologue sounds exactly like the worst part about being sober when someone else is high. That's why I don't do shit like that if I'm tripping around other people. For a solo trip, sure, I'll sit down and think about what kind of direction my life is going, who I am versus who I think I am and how I can be the person I want to be if I'm not already. But sometimes that's not the vibe, especially if you're hanging out with other people and even more so if they aren't tripping. Sometimes it's more fulfilling if I just shoot some pool and listen to some records with my friends when I trip instead of finding the meaning of life for the 20th time in 5 years. Introspection is good, but me personally I try to savor the experience. Instead of focusing on what could be, what was, or how things should be. I try to find things that bring me happiness, whether it be staring at a piece of wood and watching the patterns oscillate or painting something that'll be fun to look at later or other visually pleasing and mentally appealing things come to mind. One time I hiked up a cliff and just stared at the landscape. The history of the landscape unfolded in front of me. I saw how the glaciers formed the land and where the animals roamed, but I never tried to give it purpose other than it happened. I have DMD but not in a while, also an acid user, though never both at the same time. Here's my input. If you are all on acid, it might be more like a LARPing party where you go around the dungeon of kitchen slaying the coffee maker monster and the mimic pretending to be a refrigerator. Bonus: spilled condiments for blood. But if you are the only one tripping, you will either be overrun by your players as you can't keep up, or you will do wild crazy things that ruin the game flow as your mind wanders. The wizard decides to teleport you all into space so you can have a conversation with the pretty colored lights. Do we need to make a roll to breathe? Yes. Everyone make a constitution roll, DC 43, to survive in 0 G pressure on your lungs. A wizard did it has always been a perfectly rational explanation for whatever it is I'm doing to them, anyways, so that works out well. Music is a huge one on psychedelics. My relationship with many things changed like that. To this day I haven't seen trees the same way I did before I walked through a forest on LSD at the age of maybe 21. Parts of my brain that understood other things connected and showed me such a deeper understanding of trees, and they took on a whole new form of clarity. This has happened numerous times with numerous concepts, but trees are one such example that is always amazing to me. It makes me think of the quote about how if someone ever truly understood the universe, they would inevitably see it on such a deep level, that it would immediately rearrange itself into an even more complex idea. So I always feel like I saw trees in perfect clarity for a moment and they rearranged themselves into a more unique image in my mind. That's exactly how it was for me each time. Like, I would understand life, and then after I came down I would try to hang on to that understanding, but it would eventually slip away. While I was on acid, I kept getting the sensation that I understood the universe, and so I'd take out my phone so I could write it down and remember while I was sober. Then the phone became the primary focus and I'd forgotten what I'd just gleaned about the universe. Also, phones are difficult to use while high on psychedelics. How about writing down on paper? I still remember the first time hearing the water music taking a shower on acid. It was like I could hear every collision of every water droplet and they were all harmonizing. These experiences are always interesting to me. I mean, technically, we do hear every single water drop, our brain just does what it always does and tries to organize the chaos. It's like when you're tripping that function gets delayed or suspended entirely. Yeah, that's what it feels like. My suspicion though is that you're hearing the same stuff, but your state of mind is such that you're finding patterns in everything, so your sense of audiation is latching on to whatever it can grab and making something of it. That being said, I have hearing damage, high frequency loss, and I hear all sorts of stuff in music when I'm high on various things that I never gravitated to before. A piano layer that I previously kind of subconsciously shelved as texture is able to stand out, and I can appreciate that part of it, and it's still there when I go back to it the next day. Me, did you see anything while on acid? Grandpa, yeah, I saw you. Me, Grandpa, I've never been happy to be blind until now. Nor have I never wanted to do acid again. I'm legally blind, colorblind, photosensitive, and I have nystagmus. I've done shrooms and everything turned neon orange and purple for a bit one time. I can say that doing shrooms definitely helps me see color more, which is nice since everything seems very muted for me most of the time, but probably not the colors I should be seeing. Salvia was a fucking nightmare, but not because of the visuals. The visuals were awesome, childhood kaleidoscope toys IRL anyone, but no one ever told me I shouldn't try to move while under the influence of salvia. Good thing you can't really move, or I'm pretty sure I would have broken something flip-flopping around trying to figure out why I couldn't really move or stand up. I was legit scared the first time because I thought I had seriously fucked myself up. Also, that shit smells horrible. I never knew a plant could smell so much like rotten garbage and feet. FYI, most blind people can still see. Truly blind people are super duper rare, and it's usually not something that is had since birth. All of my conditions have been there since birth. I have no idea what normal vision is like. Not blind, but I did salvia when I was 17. I turned into a ladder and was sent to the housewares section in 1989. My whole entire vision then became ladders. Then, like tunnel vision, my sight came back to normal from the center out, slowly over the period of 5 minutes. Apparently my entire trip lasted 15 minutes. I was in line for Splash Mountain at Disneyland and couldn't move forward. I was pushing and pushing against the ropes and they wouldn't budge. I came out of it about 5 minutes later only to realize I was standing between the couch and coffee table and was essentially walking like a sim into the table over and over. Had bruises on my shins for like 2 weeks after that. I was the spine of a book, with the room I was in the pages. Every time the page was turned it felt like the room was folded in half in my head. The first time I tried salvia I could feel the threads of the carpet I was sitting on weaving into my legs and felt trapped. When I eventually stood up I felt the threads break, but felt like gravity was shifting in different directions and was falling towards different walls and shit. One of my friends tried going out a second-story window, but luckily we had babysitters with us. I enjoy telling this story, but it's a bit lengthy for a comment. Here I go anyway. My first time trying it, I was with a buddy. I opted to go first and began to feel like I was an insignificant mechanism in this giant machine, which seems to be a theme for a lot of people's salvia trips, or feeling like an inanimate object, which, the second time I tried it, I felt I became part of the ceiling fan above me. There were many parts like me. We were all the same and none of us had any control over being a part of this machine. I then started to feel like I was being squished, slowly climbing out of this inflatable tube. Looking back, I guess it would be similar to being pushed out a birth canal, and as I came to and my vision slowly came out of the tunnel, Stephen Colbert was on the TV looking right at me saying, "And that is why I'm wearing blue pants today." It seemed like the most profound thing ever for a second. My buddy who was on the couch next to me said I kept flailing and swinging my arms around and hitting him, presumably when I was coming out of the tube. He puts in headphones to take his turn. Moments later, his roommate comes downstairs and tries to talk to him. I explained to his roommate what was going on, but then my buddy turns and looks at him. He tries to get up and start walking around, headphones in, the phone they're connected to now on the ground, and we were both like, just sit down man, and he looks at us and says, I can't sit down, because my head is the floor. Back in the 80s while selling tie-dyed shirts at a Dead concert, wow, this sounds cliché, some guys parked their blind friend next to us because we weren't going anywhere, I guess. His name was Charlie and he was 20, blind since birth, studying history in college, and wasn't wearing any pants. I'm a female, as was my friend selling with me. We asked Charlie all kinds of questions. We were sober since we were working. A lot of what he said he was experiencing was heightened sensory feelings. He spent a long time in crab position enjoying kind of sliding his butt along the grass and then his penis. It wasn't sexual, it was tactile. It was pretty hysterical. For a while he would talk about how different songs tasted. We did let him feel our faces and arms and stuff. Of course we tried to describe what we could see, but he had no reference to comprehend it. The closest he came to hallucinating was he would smell things that related to an experience and say he was back at a time when such and such happened. I've been to over 30 Dead shows, but that one was the most memorable because of Charlie. If he's out there or you know him, have him hit me up. Not related to the acid part of the topic but similar. One of my friends has an older brother who was born blind. I was hanging out at their house one night and I asked him what it was like for him to have dreams. Well, he certainly never has any visual dreams, they are all touch and sound. He also said they are really strange and out in the left field. The way he said it kind of spooked me. I could only imagine. Here's a weird story. My wife is blind. She could see up until about 8 years ago when her vision started going. It took a while to figure out, but it's a genetic disorder. When she dreams she will see faces of people that she knew pre-blindness. But, anyone that she has met since the blindness appears as a vague humanoid shape. So she will have dreams mixed with clear likenesses of people and the humanoid shapes. She describes people as zombies. She can only see a darkened area where their face is located. She claims it's creepy. People who are deaf and schizophrenic have described seeing voices as literal hands signing what they are supposedly saying. That gives a fascinating window into how the brain works. Wow, I would love to spend an absurd amount of time reading about shit like that. Read anything by Oliver Sacks, most notably Hallucinations. Fascinating case studies in short-form narratives. Also check out The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat for more general brain weirdness. Easy reads. I have dreams about people I know and most of the time they have the right face, but sometimes they don't look anything like the person I know, but, in my dream, it's definitely them, same voice, same personality. When I dream of people I don't know, like random people who show up now and then, those people have no face. It's much like you describe, humanoid shape, but their heads are blank and dark grey with no features of any kind. Yes, same. I only know that people are certain people in dreams because I can feel their themness, not because of what they look like. Occasionally I'll have dreams that feature actual faces, but they tend to just be using the physical vessel of the person I know, not actually be that person in the dream. I'm legally blind. I've done acid and mushrooms. My blind spot lit up with cool visuals, probably the same as if you closed your eyes. And you people are stupid AF if you think text-to-speech and screen readers, along with other special software and APS, are not available for blind and low-vision people to use computers and the internet. As a blind person, I have always wanted to try acid to find out. Also, as a blind person, I am so tired of people assuming we cannot get online. It is 2020. Technology exists. Google it, people. In the early 90s, I volunteered at a library for the blind, and if I had $1 for every heard or how do blind people read books comment, I could have retired at age 14. Google's technology.